Hi, today we're going to talk about the good and the bad of the first half of 2025. We're doing the mid-year freakout tag, I believe it's called. And I'm a little late filming this, but honestly, I just forgot that this tag was a thing until my BookTube started flooding with people's videos of this tag. So I'm a little late, but I still want to talk about the books that I read in the first half of 2025. If you're like me and you've forgotten this tag existed or you don't know the questions, then I have them written for you in the description below. I would love to hear your answers to the questions of this tag. But first, how are you doing? I am doing I am currently experiencing postgraduate crisis, so I have no clue what I'm doing with my life. So let's talk about the books that I read in the first half of 2025. I really hope this video is going to come out soon. If it didn't, then I'm really sorry. I'm not doing too hot. I really hope you're doing well. And let's get started with this tag. The first question of this tag is, what are the best books that you've read so far this year? And I was looking back at the books that I read, and there was really one that stood out from the rest, and it's Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I finished this in January, so it was one of the first books that I read this year, and it's such a good one. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. As you can see, I am completely obsessed with this book. I annotated it. I filmed a reading vlog for part of it. The depth of the characters is something that I loved so much about this book. None of the characters are just completely moral or completely immoral. All of the characters have this balance between good and evil and what they're supposed to be doing and what they really want in life. I was a little intimidated by the page length at first, but it's really not as difficult as it seems. At first, the characters were a little bit difficult to me because they have very similar names, but there's a list of characters in the back, and that really helped me keep track of who is who. I absolutely love this story, and I cannot wait to read more by Tolstoy. So this is definitely my favorite book of the year so far. I am curious to see if this is going to be my favorite book of the year at the end of 2025. It would be a little funny if I read my favorite book of the year in January. I mean, then it kind of goes downhill from there. So I'm really hoping that there are going to be more amazing books this year and maybe one that's going to top this. But for now, I'm really happy that I read this. I definitely will be rereading this, hopefully in a bunch of years, and I can look back and see what I annotated and compare my thoughts to that point in my life. So yeah, I would highly recommend this one. This is currently my favorite book of the year, and we'll see what it is at the end of the year. Now, if I had to pick another book that I really enjoyed, it was A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. Also a classic, but this is a non-fiction. This book is 2 essays that Virginia Woolf wrote about writers and women, kind of how female writers evolved throughout the years and what they had to deal with in the past, and how we can make more space for them in the future. I really loved this essay. I thought it was so readable, but also still interesting. I'm really impressive by Virginia Woolf's writing. I've read a bunch of her work now, and it's just so captivating, so smart, so clever, but still very enjoyable to read and just fun. It's a very small book, so I flew through it, but a lot of her opinions really stuck with me. I've been thinking about this ever since. I would highly recommend that anyone read this. I really think this should be required reading because it was so good. I just love reading people's opinions about these topics, but sometimes essays can be quite dry. But Virginia Woolf's writing is just so good. It's entertaining, but still informative. Just really want to know more about this woman and what she thinks. So I think that's a really good sign. So I'm definitely counting this as one of my favorite books of the year so far. The next question is, what's the best sequel you've read so far this year? So in this year, I think I read 2 series. I read all of the Hunger Games books for the first time, which, let me tell you, that was mind-opening, eye-opening, what do you call that? So I read all 5 Hunger Games books this year, and I don't know why I slept on this series for so long. It was really good. I also watched the movies, and I just don't know what I was thinking. I think I expected the Hunger Games kind of to be like The Maze Runner and Divergent, which I wasn't really a big fan of, but it's really different. I loved the political commentary. I loved how relevant it was. YA books tend to not be my favorite, but this one was just really well written. The characters weren't annoying. I loved the political commentary, and the movies were great as well. So I read all 5 books. I really cannot pick a favorite. I mean, the second book, Catching Fire, was really good, but I also love ballads. I love that they included more songs in that book as well. And Sunrise on the Reaping, the new book that came out this year, was just amazing as well. I cannot wait for that movie to come out next year. Yeah, first of all, The Hunger Games was amazing. Secondly, I read the whole Emily Wilde trilogy, which I also made a reading vlog for. The second book specifically was my favorite. I really love this series. You can see all my detailed reactions in that reading vlog, but I really loved how different Emily was. She really felt like an adult character with her own opinions. I felt like the story was not just a romance, there were also so many other things going on. I just really liked how different these characters felt from what I've read before. I don't think it was officially confirmed, but it really seems like she has some sort of OCD or social anxiety. And also Wendell, the male love interest, was very interested in not typical masculine activities such as sewing, interior design, knitting, and I really love to see that. I might be forgetting something, but I believe those were the only books that I read sequels of. Both of them were so good that I'm just gonna name both of them here. Then the third question is your favorite 2025 new releases. So the first one I already told you about, it's Sunrise on the Reaping, which is the 5th book in the Hunger Games series. It came out this February, I think. I read it recently and it was just beautiful. It was heartbreaking. It was so good, and I cannot wait for the movie to come out. I was really hesitant at first because when I first read the main trilogy of the Hunger Games, I wasn't really a fan of the idea of the prequels because I was expecting them to be full of fan service and not necessarily adding something to the story. But then I saw so many positive reviews about this one. I've literally not seen anyone rate this lower than 5 stars. So I had to read Ballad, which came before this one, and then Sunrise on the Reaping. And I have to say, both of them are worth it. They both describe a different year of Hunger Games. So Ballad is from the 10th Hunger Games, and then this one is from the 50th Hunger Games. And you get to learn a lot more about these characters that also appear in the main trilogy. So this book specifically is about Haymitch, which is Katniss's mentor in the original trilogy, and his backstory, what happened in his games, how he became a mentor, why he is the person that he is right now. I really loved reading this. I loved it kind of separately from the main trilogy. I really feel like if you didn't know any characters of the main trilogy, you wouldn't get that fan service, but it would still be a great book. You would still fall in love with all the characters, all the new characters that are introduced. You would maybe understand a little bit less than if you read the main trilogy, but it's still a good book on its own. But it really just adds a little bit of fan service, but also a little bit of background to the main trilogy. Yeah, this is not going to be a complete video about Sunrise on the Reaping, but I just want to say I read this one. It was a new release in 2025 and I absolutely loved it. I think I rated every book in the series 4 stars, so this one got 4 stars from me as well. Loved it, would highly recommend you read it. Before I forget, the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde series was also a new release of 2025, so I read this new release as well. I liked reading this. It wasn't as good as the other 2 books, to be honest, but I still enjoyed reading this, and I'm happy that I've read all the books in the series now. Then the 4th question is what my anticipated releases are for the rest of 2025, and I have to be honest, I can't really think of any books that I am looking forward to reading that come out this year. The 2 that I was really interested in, I've already read. I think there was one book, Dream Count by Adichie, that I'm interested in reading. I think I have the audiobook available on my audiobook app, but it was a very long audiobook, so I'm kind of intimidated. I haven't read it yet, but I'm really interested in reading that one. Other than that, I really don't know of any other new releases. I might just be unaware. That might be possible. I'm sure there are a lot of books that are great that are coming out this year. I was really anticipating the Emily Wilde book and Sunrise on the Reaping, and both of those I've read, so I'm just not really aware of any other books that are coming out this year that I want to read. Then question 5 is what is your biggest disappointment of the year so far? And talking about books, I've read 2 recently that were really disappointing in my opinion. The first one being The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I had really high expectations for this one. I think it has a rating of 4.3, 4.2 on Goodreads. So I had heard nothing but great opinions on this one. I just thought it was really poorly done. And because I had heard so many great things, I was just really disappointed by this one. I read this for a Read It or Unhaul It, which hopefully is up on the channel by the time you're watching this. If it isn't, I do not know what to tell you. You can see my full reaction to everything in the book in that video, but to quickly sum it up, I really disliked how Addie's character hasn't changed in all those years. I found the premise very interesting, but I found that the plot was just really lacking. A lot of choices didn't make sense in my opinion, especially around the character of Addie and Luke. I just didn't really like this one. It was really disappointing because I had heard so many great things. Yeah, I quickly want to move on from this one. Question number 6 is, what is your biggest surprise of 2025? And I just have to pick Just Kids by Patti Smith. This was such a surprise. I absolutely loved it. I think about this book every day. It was so interesting. It was so memorable. Yeah, I just loved it. It was so good. This could have easily been a great work of fiction, but instead it's non-fiction, which makes it even more amazing. It talks about Patti Smith's life as she lives in New York and she's trying to find herself, find her art style, the upsides, the hardships, everything of living in New York and finding yourself as an artist. It was just an amazing book. I loved it. It is quite confrontational and heartbreaking sometimes because she really went through a lot of bad moments in her life that she describes in this book, which is sometimes hard to read about. But overall, I really love this book. I cannot stop thinking about it, and I'm just really happy that I read this year. So this would be my biggest surprise of the year because I really wasn't expecting to love a non-fiction memoir this much. But it just blew me away and I cannot stop thinking about it, and I would highly recommend it. The next book that really surprised me was basically the writing of Oscar Wilde. I had read The Picture of Dorian Gray, of course, but his smaller works are also just really amazing, and that's what really surprised me. I'm talking in particular about this little book called Only Dull People Are Brilliant at Breakfast, which is basically just if Oscar Wilde had Twitter. It's basically these tiny sentences and statements that Oscar Wilde has written down, and they're incredibly witty, clever, funny, and just really amazing. I loved reading this, and I love the way his mind works. It's so interesting and funny and just unserious. It can get really serious, but also very unserious at times. And I just loved reading this. I have tabbed a couple of quotes which I thought were really funny. Let's pick one. I am so clever that sometimes I don't understand a single word of what I'm saying. Then the next question is, who is your new favorite author? And there aren't a lot of authors that I haven't yet read from this year. Did I say that right? There weren't a lot of authors that I hadn't yet previously read from, but one of them was Khalil Gibran. I read The Prophet, I think in a previous Read It or Unhaul It, and this just blew me away. I loved it. I just really loved his writing style. There's so much meaning in what he says. So I cannot wait to read more from this author, and I'm really happy that I discovered him this year. The next question is, who is your new favorite character? And when I was thinking about this question, I realized that I read a lot of books with unlikable protagonists. For example, Anna Karenina is not really a likable protagonist, and I had quite a hard time choosing one. If I had to choose, I think I would have to go for Katniss Everdeen or Lucy Gray from The Hunger Games. These are just such strong women and amazing characters, and I really like the way their story is written. I also really liked Wendell from Emily Wilde. A lot of the books I read have unlikable protagonists, and they're not necessarily a new favorite character. Even though I really appreciate the book, it's not necessarily a new favorite character. Next question is, what is a book that made you cry? Now I have to tell you, I don't really cry at books. Books can make me really sad, don't get me wrong, but I usually don't really cry at books. I mean, Sunrise on the Reaping was a really sad book. I didn't cry though. In the beginning of the year, I did read The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And that one was really sad. That one really got to me. I might have shed a tear over that one, now that I think of it. A lot of books that I read are quite depressing, such as Never Let Me Go, or I Have Never Known Men, Sunrise on the Reaping, Nietzsche. Quite depressing books, but The Perks of Being a Wallflower was actually heartbreaking. I might have shed a tear over that one. So I'm gonna pick The Perks of Being a Wallflower as my answer. Now for the next question we have, what is a book that made you happy this year? Which is way nicer question. One of the books that made me really happy was The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. It was also my first time reading this one, and it just is a lovely book. It is a children's book about a group of animals who they have all these adventures together and they learn a bunch of things. These animals are just a little bit out of control, and it's just really funny and heartwarming, and they all have their own personality. It was just really heartwarming reading this book, and I think that's why it made me so happy, seeing all these animals kind of live their life, just going day to day, finding what makes them happy and being with each other. It was just really whimsical and fun. Another book that made me really happy was The Hobbit by Tolkien. That one is also just really whimsical and fun, and I think those books tend to make me happy the most. I also just love the movies of The Hobbit. They're not really book accurate, but they're so cozy and heartwarming and fun, and I definitely cried at the ending of that one. I love the story so much. I love the movies, and I finally got to read The Hobbit this year, which was just lovely. I love the decisions that the movie makes, but seeing the book itself, what it's meant to be, was just really fun, and that made me really happy. Then the next question is, what is the most beautiful book that you bought this year? And I don't want to keep mentioning the same books, but Sunrise on the Reaping, I Will Take Off the Dust Jacket, is such a gorgeous book. They did an amazing job with this book design. I mean, look at this. This must be one of the most beautiful books that I bought this year. Then again, I didn't really buy a lot of books this year, but Sunrise on the Reaping was one of them, and this is just a gorgeous book. They really did a really good design with this one. I love this hardcover. I love displaying this book on my shelves without the dust jacket. I mean, the dust jacket is great too. It looks beautiful, but this with the foiling is just so beautiful. So I really love this cover. Then I also bought this edition of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which I also think is a really beautiful edition. And I again love the foiling so much. It's really beautiful. So I think those two books are the most beautiful books that I bought this year. Then for the last question we have, what is your TBR for the rest of the year? And to be honest, I don't really know. I don't really have any books set for the rest of the year. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I really had plans to read Anna Karenina and the Emily Wilde series and the Hunger Games series, all three of which I have read. So I really don't know what I'm going to be reading for the last half of the year. Oh, I really want to get to War and Peace at some point. I wanted to do it this summer, but I've been really intimidated, and I'm just really scared that it's going to be such a challenge. I felt the same way with Anna Karenina, but War and Peace is just a step up from Anna Karenina, so I'm even more intimidated to start War and Peace. I do want to do it at some point, but I'm just not sure if it's going to be this year. I might also want to read the Silmarillion. Well, the Lord of the Rings, Hobbit knowledge is quite fresh in my brain. I also have a lot of books that are more fall themed, like I have If You're Villains, Interview with the Vampire, Frankenstein, which I really want to read when it's October, November. So I've got to wait a couple of months for those books. Other than that, I don't really know. I don't have a lot of books specifically in mind for the last half of the year. I'll just see what comes my way, and hopefully they're good books. I just want to read everything. Hopefully I'll get to read a lot of good books in the last half of this year. That was this tag, the mid-year freak out tag. I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you're doing well, and I would love to hear your answers to the questions of this tag in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.